The New York City Football Club played their first match at the Coachella Valley Invitational. Roberto Abramowitz and I will review that. And we also go back 2 days. A presser, first David Lee, sporting director, New York City. Pascal Jansen, first-year head coach, New York City. We'll play some clips from that. You'll get our reaction. We're also seeking your reaction tonight, your commentary. We are live. It's NYCFC Views Live.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. NYCFC Views.
Collins approaches the shot, and New York City wins the first MLS Cup on their first try, and they're going crazy.
Tiene tiro y gol! Gol! New York City es el campeón de Major League Soccer!
The sickest New York City FC podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Hey, everybody. I'm Glenn Crooks. There's Roberto Abramowitz, and we are back with our pretty much weekly live podcast here, thanks to the sick people, NYCFC Views. I'm in Indio, California, which I hesitate to say it's been in the high 70s, low 80s for the 2 days I've been here. We're in the desert, so there's no rain, and it's been pretty nice.
I can imagine.
That's about the best I could say. And I know back in the New York, New Jersey area, dealing with a lot of. Hopefully, everybody was safe this morning if the roads were icy. But they're playing soccer matches here, and I've seen a lot already, Roberto. And looking forward to getting into it and talking a little bit about this first scrimmage.
So New York City 0-0, right? First game. Well, that's not first game, but first game in this tournament, and you got a chance to not only watch the game but to describe it as well, as you were on the broadcast. That was live on YouTube and on Channel 9 here in New York City, a New Jersey station, by the way, which I think will make you happy.
Where are they? Where are they?
From your perspective, and based on what I heard on the broadcast, you weren't hidden under the stands away from and watching on television when you were actually be able to watch the game live and describe that as opposed to last year. So what was your point of view from what you saw?
Well, yeah, first of all, I think at the end of last year, Chase, who produces this, and he does a great job because there's a lot going on. There's 2 games always going on at the same time, and he's basically producing 2 broadcasts simultaneously. And but I did mention to him at the end last year, I go, man, it's crazy that we're here and we're under the bleacher calling this off of a monitor. If anything can be done, sometimes there's insurance reasons, especially if you go up in these lifts. And I think he finally got permission to just go to the top of the bleacher, put a table there, and that's exactly what we did. We were with the supporters in essence. Look. LAFC and the LA Galaxy both played yesterday, and they had a pretty massive turnout. I mean, a lot of people. And LA's not like around the corner. It's a 3-hour drive.
Yeah.
Came out, watched the game, and then went home. I mean, this is the kind of support they get. And for New York City Sporting KC, I did run into a couple of New York City supporters who recognized me. They have since moved to California after initially being a season ticket holders, so they had their gear on and they were all excited, but it was pretty sparse compared. But yeah, good view from the top of the bleacher, and really could tactically analyze the game. So it was fun.
It sounded like it, and the team. I mean, so we didn't see Santi, right? So you'll explain why in a bit. We didn't see Thiago Martins, but otherwise, I mean, that was pretty much your starting. Hannes Wolf. So that's pretty much your starting 11.
Yeah, Hannes Wolf is about ready to come back. They're all nursing soft tissue injuries, is what I've been told. Martins hasn't played a lick, so there's no clear. But Pascal, who I met for the first time before his presser, and then spent some time with him before the kickoff yesterday, just to get an idea of what his plan was for the game. but he said that's when he identified Martins has a calf injury and is just not ready. Andres Pereira, also soft tissue, not ready right now. Santi, it seemed to me that he was more of a load issue, and they were just being careful with him and not playing him in this match. I expect we'll see Santi in the second game against San Diego on Saturday. And then Malachi Jones, that was one where he was not, when I got the roster, he wasn't anywhere to be seen. And so he's been working with the team, but not full contact. So, look, you remember what he said last year when we saw him, and it wasn't too long after his surgery. He goes, I want to be back by the end of the year. It was a substantial fracture surgery. He's not yet ready to compete. So I'm sure a lot of people were wondering about Malachi, and that's the situation with him.
And I'm not surprised. I talked about this last year, that I thought that it didn't seem reasonable. I was shocked when people were saying that he might be ready for the playoffs. And I was like, there just can't be a way. But I mean, I know modern medicine, comes up with miracles, every time, and 5 years is a long time between, and what can be advanced in all of this. But it just did not seem that it could be reasonable for him to be ready for the end of last season. And all I want for him is to recover completely and then be able to play as well as he can and be a great contributor for New York City FC. I just didn't think the timetable was reasonable. Look, I'm not a doctor, nor have I ever played one on TV or on streaming media, but I did suffer an injury similar to that. And I've spoken to doctors about it and what the recovery time is. And, not just for myself or for an athlete, because any time that I get a chance to be able to speak about these things, I want to know so I can have the proper context to be able to, talk about it. I just didn't seem, I was in shock. I was in shock last year when people were saying, oh, no, he's going to be back for this season. I was like, how is that happening? But, I'm sorry to see that he's not ready to play now. Hopefully he will be soon, and that he can be contributing, because we saw what he could do last year. That is a rookie, and and Pascal needs a chance to see what he can do, because there's a lot of competition for all those spots.
Well, everyone on the active roster, so those that were not injured, played yesterday. And I asked him before the match, I said, you're going to start maybe, what's your plan for the second half as far as some of these guys I see in the roster? He said, everyone will play. Now, we'll have a chance to talk to him again before Saturday's game, and I'll try to elicit as much on the broadcast, from what he tells me in terms of the plan. But I would be surprised if game 2, everyone plays. I think now you have have 3 matches left before you play Inter Miami, and he's got to figure some things out. Now, if Hannes Wolf is not quite ready, and you would think Santi will be back, but that's not a guarantee. Martins is not going to be playing. Who did I leave out? Andres Pereira.
You don't think Martins is going to be ready soon? What did they give you a timetable for Martins?
No.
Because that's a big one.
No, it's huge. You had Strahinja Tanasiewicz starting next to Burke Risa, and that's a different kind of central defender. Martins is better on the ball. He delivers a better pass.
He's faster.
He's a lot faster for the balls that are being played in behind. Because one thing I noticed, I was trying to watch and decipher, are there any massive differences or even, minor tweaks that we could identify from the Nick Cushing New York City FC to the Pablo Jansen. And I couldn't pick too much specific out, although Kevin O'Toole got in a lot more. Now, I don't know if it's another year. He's solid as the left back. There's really no competition right now for Kevin O'Toole. And but he got several crossing balls in, and there were the dangerous opportunities that New York City had in this game. Many of them came from Kevin O'Toole. So that was a little different, whether that's because of Janssen's presence and emphasis or not, we don't know. These are things that I'll talk to him about when I get to sit down with him for around 20 minutes. We haven't figured out when that will be yet, but I'm going to ask him a lot about those sorts of things, especially how he's seen what New York City did last year. So compare, contrast, what is a Pascal Jansen team, going to look like? And I also thought, Roberto, maybe a little bit more emphasis on wing play. Fernandez and Ojeda were a lot more involved maybe than they were at times last year, but it's just one game. It was one half, so it's pretty difficult to figure it all out.
Yeah, so Mitja Ilinic started instead of Tavon Gray. And I say instead of because obviously they're both fighting for the position, and Tavon Gray played most of the season last year. Is there a hierarchy yet been determined by Pascal Jansen?
I asked that specifically before kickoff because I saw Ilinic starting and Gray as a sub. And he said, no, it wouldn't be fair to say that because Tavon apparently hasn't been able to participate full time from the start of preseason to now. So he doesn't feel like he's gotten a fair shake. And the one thing I think you would get from Pascal is that that's exactly what he's trying to do. He wants everybody, he's a new coach, so everybody's got a new life. So if Agustin Ojeda was disappointed with his minutes last year, well, you know what? You got a new kid in town leading the team. Well, he's not a kid, he's 51, but a new guy in town.
Kid to us.
you can make an impression, and I think he has. I mean, he is starting, and Julian Fernandez with Hannes Wolf down, you would think that would be the natural choice, but he is starting, so he must be showing something. I think Alonso Martinez looked pretty sharp. Maxi Morales started as the 10, and maybe didn't get on the ball as much as we would have liked. The midfield is where I think we should watch closely with Justin Hack and Keaton Parks, with James Sands gone, Andres Perea not available, and Johnny Shore came in. And if you listen to the Pascal Jansen, we're going to play a few clips from both him and David Lee in a minute from their press conference. But Pascal Jansen made a special mention of Johnny Shore because I had asked the question about the youth, and how he's going to garner their minutes to see if, are they capable of playing? And he mentioned Johnny Shore in the first two scrimmages, how he pretty much handled things like a pro. So Shore came in the second half, really was not on the ball at all. But the problem with the second half, Roberto, was that it was like all reserves, and then you had Monsa Bakrar up top, and I'm trying to think who else might have been a regular that was in. That was pretty much it. So, you have to give him a chance to play with the regulars for major minutes too, I would think.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
That midfield with Hack and Parks, there wasn't much of a pivot there, side to side. It was, it's a work in progress, I'm sure. And I'm sure that's one of the things too.
So, Glenn, we talked about this in the past, right? Once Sands, it was clear that he wasn't coming back and then he was gone, is the fact that now you've got three people, right? You got three players for two positions in, unless he's going to play a 4-3-3, which just changes everything. But if he's going to go with a 4-2-3-1, which seems to be the preferred formation for the team, then the two in front of the defense, two of those guys who you'd think would be starters, they're both really 8s and not really a 6. And Hack is the only 6 because Perea and Parks are both really more attacking players as 8s. How do you see that?
Yep, the season started Saturday against San Diego, and let's make Andres Perea healthy. I think it's going to be Hack, Parks, and then either Maxi or Santi. That's a decision that Pascal Jansen's going to have to make as well. Is Maxi Morales a part-time starter? Because he's not going to be able to play every match, and we don't want to belabor the point that he's 37 years old, but he's just not going to be able to, play full-time every match through a 34 season plus the outside competition. So is it Santi, the attacking mid, and then that gives opportunities for Ojeda? What happens when Hannes Wolf? But I know you're asking specifically about the midfield. That's what I would say, is that it's going to be just between Parks.
Yeah. So you said between I'm sorry, Hack and Parks. You think Perea gets a nod as definitely a starter, and then Parks
no.
and Hack have,
No, I either misspoke or you misheard it. No, it's Hack and Parks at the start. And then Perea right now is, a reserve in a 4-2-3-1. I think that's why I said if the season started Saturday and Perea was in full health, I still think it would be Hack and Parks in the midfield. Now, here's another consideration: if Martins is out for a considerable length of time, which he has been up to this point. So we don't have specifics on this calf injury, but it's obviously a problem. Does Justin Hack become a central defender? Because let's face it, I think we would both rate him over Strahinja Tanasiewicz being the guy playing next to Burke Risa if, again, Martins is unavailable and the transfer market does not bring in any others. Max Murray, probably not yet ready. He came in the second half, the first-round draft pick. So when you watch the game back, you'll see, he's immature, and that's he just needs more seasoning. He's got a big frame. He's fast. He's going to be an interesting player, but I don't think he'll be ready for the start of the season.
I mean, obviously, I didn't get a chance to see any of the scrimmages or practice. What you mentioned with Hack, that was something that he was able to do to fill in last season. But if he's not playing there, right, and he's not practicing there, I don't see how you give him the nod over Tanasiewicz to start the season right now.
Hack doesn't need to practice. I'm telling you. Do you think he practiced fullback when he got thrown into fullback? I mean, there were times where he's been thrust into positions where
I get that. He's the jack of all trades, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean, he's your first reserve, behind three guys, aside from being right now a starter in midfield, because behind O'Toole, he'd probably be there unless you have somebody else right now, which I don't know of. Defense, he's got to be there. I mean, he's everywhere.
Well, we've got some questions in the comments, and it's great because we would like, if you watch the game, we'd like to know what you thought as well. What were some of the things that stand out? Daniel is asking who impressed you the most from yesterday's match, and I have to think about that a little bit. I would say the guy who just looked ready was Alonso Martinez. Burke Risa did well. He had a moment, for those who watched the game, where he tried to play Joveljic in an offside, and it was near the halfway line, and he mistimed it and made an impressive recovery and a sliding tackle in the area to deny Joveljic, which is another part of the story yesterday. This the first cash for player trade in MLS under the new guidelines for $4 million. Sporting KC picks up Joveljic from the
Galaxy, which makes you wonder who the Galaxy are going to pick up to drop Joveljic.
Well, they're going to pick somebody up. Well, they picked up Christian Ramirez, which is interesting. That was just announced recently. Now
Christian Ramirez is not a 1-for-1 trade for Joveljic.
No, but I'm saying they're trying to figure it out. Miguel Berry is there, I think, too. Sometimes I get the LAs mixed up, and I watched the Galaxy and LAFC yesterday. Yeah. So I hope I. But
the Griezmann rumors, that keeps on staying hot. That might be it.
Roberto, JB Blaze said, "Are the Santi rumors true? Do you have any idea what this means?"
Yeah, I do. So the latest one that came out of Brazil was for Botafogo, now supposedly being interested in offering New York City $15 million. That is only on Twitter. We don't know. There is no. There wasn't given any attribution to anybody of direct knowledge of that transaction, and this is nothing new from things that come out, especially out of Brazil, where you get a million rumors a day. So as far as I know, I haven't heard anything directly from anybody as far as something like that happening, and the chances of them really happening, I'm not too sure. There hasn't been any part of the rumor that elevates it to something that I would say, wow, okay, this might have legs. As of this moment, it's just speculation in media as far as I'm concerned.
All right. Well, Santi wasn't around for the game yesterday. We'll see what happens on Saturday based on, what we've heard. And
Alex Jimenez had I'm just looking at this now. Alex Jimenez, and Shane, if you can put that up, he had some thoughts on this. I don't know where he's hearing it from, but let us know, Alex, in the comments. That went left. I guess that doesn't mean that it was going the right way and that it's not happening. Thank you, Alex.
Every now and then I turn left and it's the right way. I'm not sure about that one, but
yeah, I know that's it.
So
we'll see what happens.
So for those anybody watching or listening, and you're not certain about this, New York City FC YouTube channel has the full game on. If for some reason you missed it, and interesting, it was also on Channel 9, and I was Herman put this one up too. Well, it was nice of him to say good job on the call yesterday. Thank you, but the video wasn't great on Channel 9. What's that all about?
I was watching the game. I taped it on Fubo, and I just watched the first half, a little bit, most of the first half. I didn't get a chance to see the whole thing, but I did see. But it was acceptable, but I mean, it wasn't 1080p level where, the great clarity, but I've seen games broadcast from a lot of places that don't look any better than that.
What I'm saying is the YouTube broadcast was very sharp, I thought. So that's what I'm kind of comparing it to, but I guess things get lost in the wired translation sometime, and maybe took a step
I haven't
down.
seen what it looks like on YouTube. I'll check it out to see if there's any different. I mean, it looked fine. It didn't look it wasn't like I was blown away by it, but then again, I wasn't like, oh my God, this sucked.
Yeah. So best chance of the game, Mason Toye, Jersey boy, who has found his way as a free agent to Sporting KC. Look, he's going to be the backup to Joveljic. But he was the most dangerous attacking player yesterday, and he came on at the 30-minute mark. Joveljic played 30 minutes for Kansas City, and then Toye came on. But he was, if I may say, toying with the back line, really riding that back. What I liked about Toye, and you'll hear it in my commentary if you turn it back on, Roberto. But Toye plays, and this is what's great about being at the games. When we hear that calling it off the monitor is, it's you don't lose it. No, at the games. So you see Mason Toye playing in an offside position. He puts himself in an offside position all the time. So the central defenders, are constantly glancing to try to find him. And he times it well where he puts himself onside and then the ball is delivered. And the time he got in and should have scored, it was there were Mpansa and Murray. The two youngsters were playing center backs together, and he had them confused and got in. And Mason Toye also missed a penalty, hit it wide right. Both of his shots were wide right, and then he pulled one wide left in the first half. He had these great chances, obviously, from the spot, and that kept it 0-0. So that's
as the Super Bowl approaches, the Scott Norwood approach.
What was his shout?
It was wide right, 47 yards, wide right.
Yeah, wide right. Super Bowl. Yeah, I have a Super Bowl comment before we end this thing too. Let's okay, so that's the game. So Saturday, it's 12 noon local. It's 3 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. And that's a fun one because it's San Diego, the new team under Mikey Varis, and get a chance to see how they go at it,
Yeah, you get Chucky. You get Chucky Lozano. You can't call him Chucky in Spanish. They call him Chucky.
Yeah, I'll be careful.
Lozano.
I'll be careful. Irving,
no, you've been really good. Look, you've been really good with the names. I can't. It's very rare where I have.
And I'm gonna put more Spanish social media posts up too, just for you, Roberto. That was a good one though for Martinez, right? And I did that.
Yes.
Thank you. I know you.
All right, he knows how to use Google Translate.
I
impressed.
do, and I can only trust that it was proper. I don't know. Maybe
yeah, exactly. I mean, you can send it to me to edit it, mind you, but or
cool.
Ariel.
All right,
and they'll be happy to. He'll be happy to do that. I'm sure. If you guys have any more comments, please send them in. Obviously, we're reading them and commenting on this.
Well,
so,
you may have
get in there.
They may have comments on these next group of clips from. So I landed on Tuesday and just hightailed it to the hotel where the presser occurred. And first it was David Lee, 25 minutes with David Lee, and then another 20 plus with Pascal Jansen. So for his first press conference, and for David Lee, his first of 2025. So there were good questions because it's the first press conference with David Lee since he fired Nick Cushing and replaced him with Pascal Jansen. So he explained that a little bit. Let's go to that one first, Shane, our producer. And so David kind of outlined what he's looking for in a coach, but what, really kind of occurred where he felt like he needed to make a change. Here's David Lee. This one would be under inconsistency, Shane.
Results are a critical part of that. In my opinion, I felt like we were a really inconsistent group last year, and we saw periods of what was an absolutely top performing group in MLS, particularly that period April May where we won 8 of 9. I said to a few people we got 24 points in those 9 matches in April and May, and we got 26 points in the other 24 matches in the whole season, or 25 matches in the whole season. So that was just a sign of real inconsistency, and so that results are absolutely part of it. And there is a soft side, there is a gut feel, there is an environmental factor that you can only really sense and feel if you're in the environment every single day, and you try and take all of that into account. You try and take into account the resources that they've had available. So, in 2023, we did not make the playoffs, but we didn't change head coach at the end of that season because we know that we were going through a period of rebuilding that team, and we didn't feel like that was the right decision at that point when we considered all of those factors. And as we made that decision at the end of 2024, we came to a different conclusion.
So interesting. Talking about the everyday environment, we know when we go up to training, Roberto, that we often see David Lee observing. He's up at the facility, and it was, it gave you some insight, inconsistency. The other thing he said in the press conference was talking about the development of young players, which was one of the main thrusts for him bringing in Pascal Jansen. I want to reiterate, and I had said this on a previous pod, that New York City has been aware of this guy for 4 years. So he's been on New York City's radar for that amount of time. And a big part of it is how he did at AZ Alkmaar. And anywhere along the line where Nick Cushing, maybe there was some thought about we should do this now. What I'm talking about is during the season last year, then Pascal Jansen was, I think, pretty much on deck. This is a guy that they've coveted, and David Lee now has him.
Yeah, they've coveted. They've known about him, but obviously there didn't seem to be any sort of an offer done, or at least it seems that way, before Nick was fired, because we have to also assume that a deal would have probably been done a lot earlier.
Well, they had to negotiate. They had to negotiate that resolution fee. I mean, they had to pay a whopping fee to the Hungarian side because he was under contract with them. So that was part of the delay too, I think. Yeah,
and then you wonder what happens if New York City actually beats the Red Bulls and makes it, makes it to another round. Does that change anything? So at this point we don't know. We're just speculating. So at this point, I guess we just have to move on now.
Yeah. So, and we'll move on with some David Lee clips here. One, of course, the number one, if you're a supporter of this club, the first thing, and because I don't always go there, because that teams are always trying to improve their side, and sporting directors in particular, that's what they're charged with. But supporters want to know about transfers. So here's David Lee.
Yeah, we certainly expect so. I think part of the maybe slow or quiet, as you described it, is one thing we want to do is we want to give Pascal an opportunity to work with the group. In MLS, it doesn't make sense to acquire players that then block the pathway of somebody that might emerge as somebody really important for Pascal. And so, we've obviously been looking at players and we have targets in mind, and the window's still open for quite a long time for us right now. So we certainly anticipate signing players before the close of the window. But I do think, in my experience, having gone through, a couple of coaching changes as sporting director, there are always players that emerge when you change a head coach that become really important players that maybe you hadn't expected. And similarly, there are players that maybe had a really important role under a previous head coach that may not under the new head coach. And so, trying to give Pascal the opportunity to work with a group and see, get his feel for the players, and ultimately try and also get some experience in MLS and get a better feel for that, I think is an important part. We've got a pretty complete squad. We've lost, in terms of really important players that played maybe significant minutes last season. We've had obviously James depart. We had Christian McFarlane. We had Jovan leave, and so we've got out of those players, we've got 3 open roster spots as it stands right now. And so we still have quite a full roster when you look at it in totality. And so we're trying to be really strategic with making sure that the additions that we do make are the players that are going to come in and improve what we think is already a strong and deep overall roster.
So interesting explanation to give Pascal a chance to maybe play somebody and discover somebody that hasn't contributed in the past. So that's part of David Lee's reasoning. There's these things are ongoing, and I'm not sure what you thought about that. His response to that, Roberto. But
I have something concrete on that. Was this is a real good opportunity for some of these kids like Zidane Yanez, Maximo Carrizo, to really try to impress and to try to say, hey, instead of going and getting some journeyman from Eastern Europe or South America, we want to get those minutes. We deserve those minutes. And so the kids are going to get a chance. And look, New York City has had, you can't argue with the fact that they've had a lot of success with a lot of kids, as you keep on seeing, the Reynas, even though he never really played first team minutes for New York City, Scally and others be able to move on and join clubs, bigger clubs in Europe. So you want to be able to see if these kids really have it and give them a chance to thrive. So I get it from that standpoint, but also you want to see, as some of these teams that are competing with New York City, there are 29 teams now competing with New York City, are also, in cases of Atlanta, specifically, Miami, that are bringing in a lot of quality, or at least are paying high transfer fees for players that are supposed to improve their team or improve depth. So, how is New York City going to be able to compete? Now, based on the previous and the present philosophy, it's worked okay for New York City. They won a championship in 2021, and you can't argue with it, that bringing in a huge name is going to change something. But they're obviously sticking with the process, and it's good news for the kids. And let's see if the kids can really take advantage of this and make a name for themselves.
Well, it's not always a big name either. I mean, I spoke with Nico Estevez today, the Austin coach, and we were talking about Mirto Izuni, who's an Albanian striker, and he's another goal scorer that's going to, help out Brandon Vasquez, they hope. But here's a guy that could come in and tear it up, and he's not a big name. And he's not a teenager, so, there's different ways to look at it.
But he also brought in, but not him, but Austin also brought in Brandon Vasquez. So,
well, that's what
which is a U.S. national team level player. New York City hasn't brought in anybody like that. Well, they haven't brought anybody in, except for the kids right now.
Well, if you look at the roster as it stands, you need, there's a lack of depth in midfield. There's a lack of depth at the back. Kevin O'Toole does not have a backup unless somebody emerges from the young man that came in yesterday. And I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me. I probably should know, but is not. He's not. I don't see him making the first team, and central defense as well. I mean, if Martins all of a sudden becomes a bit injury prone, and Burke Risa has been injury prone. Burke Risa had to leave the game injured yesterday. Mm-hmm. So, and it just, I think there's things that need to be taken care of from a depth standpoint, and you're going to hope to survive with Alonso Martinez and Monsef Bakar as your strikers, and bank on that, and bank on the young guys, Fernandez and Ojeda, to really grow and become important members of the attacking side. So there's work to be done. And one more with David Lee. And because now the thing that really stood out to me there is that they have 3 open roster spots. So there is room to bring players in. So I wondered, I asked a question in this presser about what he thought of this new budget rule where you can just make a strict cash transaction to get a player within MLS, which is new, and whether maybe that might lead into some movement for New York City in this transfer window. So here's the last one with David Lee.
I think it's a great development. I actually think it's one of the bigger rule changes that MLS has seen in the last few years. I don't think that we collectively as a league will see the full effect of the rule change. And probably for another window or two as teams get familiar with it. I think we're all still learning exactly how it works because it's been implemented a little bit on the fly, but obviously already started to see some transactions happening with it. I think the biggest thing was in MLS, there was essentially a group of players that were completely unobtainable to move inside MLS because you could only trade your allocation money and every team has a limited pot of allocation money. Now you can open the door to essentially recruit from inside MLS that really was quite challenging before to assess the right value, how much allocation money you had. And now being able to use cash for those players, I think it opens up obviously possibility for DP investments and acquiring DPs from other teams. Potentially that was not possible before because those values you could never acquire with GAM. But I also think it opens up possibilities for players within the salary cap as well. So we'll certainly explore it. We're certainly looking at it to see if there's a right fit within the league. Obviously, there's a benefit to those players being able to come in ready to go, experience with the league already. But ultimately, we still got to find the right value to be able to bring those players into the group.
One thing there too, players when they move, they get 10% of the transfer fee. So players might not deny the opportunity to move as readily, knowing that they're going to cash in a little bit.
I think it's huge that way. It's a great point. That's absolutely not to be understated how important that is. That players are going to get paid for this. But then there's this other part.
One other thing, Roberto, and I want to hear what you think. One other because I talked to Peter Vermes before the game, the Sporting KC coach, and he says he thinks that it's also going to inflate the value of players as they go out on the market. If somebody swoops in from Europe to get the Dejan Joveljic now, who's 25 years old, a guy obviously in his prime now based on the year he had with the Galaxy, but because $4 million was paid for him, now they know they're going to have to come in and spend at least 6 or 8 or 10 in order to get him. So Vermes thinks that it'll increase the outgoing transfer fee as well. So that's interesting.
So that's good. It's great for the teams. And the other thing is that the money that they can spend on one of these players isn't affected by the cap, which is why it's not like Kansas City had to be $4 million under the cap to be able to afford them. No, they can pay whatever it is, and that doesn't affect. So, cash rich teams or that teams that don't mind spending cash are going to be able to acquire players within the league without having to go out and spend a lot on scouting, the Croatian league or something to that effect, or, in Paraguay or Uruguay.
Let's get to the Pascal Jansen clips, and then we'll get to kicking it around. For Jansen, I thought his one comment when one of the I forgive me, but I don't remember who asked the question off the Zoom feed, but it was about mentality, and here's what he had to say, and it's been certainly a point of emphasis throughout preseason.
We addressed this topic also in earlier team meetings with the squad over the past 2-3 weeks. I would like to call it that we have a bulletproof mindset. Always being aggressive, going out to win the games, obviously, but a bulletproof mindset makes you, in my opinion, it makes you work from a standard that you feel like you can handle anything in any stadium under any circumstance. So that's what I'm looking for.
Bulletproof. Yeah, and I like that. You go
Yeah.
you go on the road and wait, in Miami and then at LAFC, you're going to have two pretty interesting environments to open the season in. And so that bulletproof mentality is going to be challenged right off the bat.
I agree, but there's two things about that, and maybe, I don't know how much of the games he's actually seen. Obviously, he's never been to one. It's different, right? It's not these games and these stadiums are going to be loud, but if you compare them to what we've seen in, full stadiums in Latin America and in some places in Europe, they're not intimidating. Okay, you're not walking into.
Sorry, LAFC is intimidating.
You think it's intimidating? I don't think it's intimidating. When I think of intimidating, I think of La Bombonera. I think of La Bombonera in Argentina.
I get you.
That if you win the game, hold on. That if you win the game as a visiting team, you may have to wait 5-6 hours in the locker room before you can get out of the stadium. That's intimidating. That's intimidating.
I'm not disputing that. I'm saying for the MLS player who maybe hasn't experienced that or anything even close to that, have been playing in front of 4,000 people for a majority of their career.
But that's loud. Yes, it's going to be loud, but it's loud and fun.
It's more than loud. They're abusive.
I don't find it intimidating. To all of you who have been contributing here on the side in the comments, as we see it on the side over here, let us know what you think about stadium atmospheres in MLS. I love the stadium atmospheres, and I'm not criticizing them. As a matter of fact, I prefer them. But, I mean, it's not an intimidating atmosphere. I don't even think Portland was an intimidating atmosphere. It was a great atmosphere. It was fantastic. But I wasn't intimidated. Okay? There is a difference.
Well,
there's an absolute difference.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad as a broadcaster up in that last row at Portland, you weren't intimidated by the crowd.
I was not. They were very nice. They should have brought me some coffee. An umbrella would have helped.
We're talking about the competitors. We're not talking about the freaking broadcasters. Are you kidding me?
Well, I'm not talking about it. You brought it up. I didn't bring it up. I'm never afraid of being there. And look, you and I have both broadcast from the stand.
Can we focus on bulletproof mentality? He obviously felt, based on either discussions or who he is or what he's observed, that that's not present in this team. Do you understand me? So that is a goal of his. Okay.
So wait. So let me ask you this, because now you brought up something that I was thinking about, but I really didn't. I didn't really want to say anything because I don't know, and that's a question to ask. Do you think that everything that he said that he was imposing, or maybe some of what he said was that he was doing with the team, was something that he thought was actually lacking? Or is it just something that he's just doing on his own, and this is what he does with all of his teams? Because I never got the feeling that any of that was lacking last year or the year before.
No, I wouldn't sense, but maybe there is a sense that something was lacking. And look, he's in conversations with someone who observed, everything, and maybe there was some sort of conversation that took place that would be in regard to that. No, I'm sure he's just being himself. He's going to be different than Nick. Every coach that the New York City's had, one has been different from the other. One thing David Lee said in terms of the CFG philosophy, City Football Group, that's another reason Pascal was hired, is that they believe that his methods coincide and mesh well with CFG. But he said every coach that's come through has had their own way of doing things also. And I think it's more that than he sensed something was wrong. I just think he's I've heard he's very strict. That's about all I know. So I'm really anxious to talk to him at length.
Well, that's a difference, right? I think that if he's very strict, I didn't think that Nick, I don't think he gave the feeling that he was very strict. I don't mean this in a bad way, that meant that, I was party all the time. I think obviously, there's a lot of respect for the player and respect for your profession, and you do the best that you can, but everybody approaches things in a different different manner. There are players coaches, and then there are other coaches that may not be players coaches. I don't know where Pascal
Well, he's
comes in on that.
Based on things I've heard from people that know him well and from his teams in the past, is that he gets to know his players, and that's an important part. His relationship with his players is an important part of his success. So I didn't mean to say he's strict, in a negative connotation way. It's just he's about his business, and but we just have to get to know him, and then we'll
absolutely.
find out more about him,
We have another statement here that I want to put up here because this is something that we will address, and that was addressed by David Lee, and that's a Maximum New York City statement. Shane, can you put him up there? Thank you. So this is what he said. He said he won't sign anyone. Well, that's not what David Lee said. Okay, David Lee specifically mentioned that they had 3 open positions. And what he wanted to do was he wanted to see how Pascal, and we just spoke about this, Pascal, saw the team as it was. And, some of the young players, well, obviously they're pushing. Okay. But that doesn't mean that they're not signing anybody. And anybody knows the history of New York City, especially since David Lee has taken over. There's been always signings that come in late. This is an always thing for New York City. So I disagree with you, Maximum. I totally disagree. I think New York City will sign players. We just don't know when or what positions they're going to be at. But I do believe that they're going to sign.
All right, well done, Roberto. Hey, we're moving past the time that we've been told the algorithm doesn't like the length of our podcast, but we're going to go on.
We went over that a while ago, Glenn. I hate to tell you.
All right, let's kick it around, man. All right, this is one of the better soccer stories. I love these kinds of things. 12 versus 11 is the title of this. I'm not sure if you heard about this, Roberto, but visitors Fortuna made a late double substitution against Heerenveen, who is coached by Robert Van Persie, so he's involved with this. It's in the Dutch league. Van Persie's team is up 2-1, okay? So when this double substitution was made, only one guy came off the field. So for a period of time, they were playing 12 versus 11. And what happened is they put pressure on and earned a throw-in deep in Van Persie's territory. Then it was discovered, and now they took a player off the field. Now it's 11 aside. But they got the throw-in based on the fact they had a man advantage, and so it's deep in the corner. The throw-in results in a corner kick, and then they score on the corner kick to make it 2-2 in stoppage time, and that's the game. So 12 versus 11.
This is where exactly?
This is in the Netherlands, in the top
first division, in the top division of the Netherlands. That happened, and then they criticize refereeing here in MLS. Go ahead. That has never happened in MLS, guys. Just never happened. All right.
Well, they're appealing that too. And my final thing, Roberto, and it pertains to the Super Bowl. And I know you know this, but when you read it, it just becomes so clear what a genius Pat Riley is. So the Chiefs are trying to become the first NFL team to win 3 consecutive Super Bowls. So that's a three-peat. Well, as you and I know, the phrase three-peat has been licensed by Pat Riley from years ago when he was coaching the Lakers. They'd won 2 in a row, and he said, we're trying to three-peat. And he went and what's it?
He trademarked it.
He licensed it. He trademarked. So he's got 6 different trademarks on this, like clothes. If somebody puts three-peat on a T-shirt, he gets that. Jewelry. So he and his lawyer already have an agreement with the Chiefs, if they are to win, that they can use it. But they've had to pay for the rights to use it and pay Pat Riley. I think it's genius. As good as a coach he was, forget about it. This is like unbelievable.
It is genius. It really, really is. And good for him. And good that he trademarked it along all the line, because, I mean, that's a word that he invented. I hate when people take phrases that are out there that apply to a team and then maybe become associated with the team, and then they try to trademark that when it's been a phrase that's been used in other ways for God knows how long. But three-peat did not exist until Pat Riley actually said it. So, yes, he deserves a trademark. He did the smart thing. And here we go. We have a couple of more statements over here. So let's go with Daniel Pantaleon, because people that are listening and paying attention should get their time. So, he's been to La Bombonera. Okay. Estadio Monumental, which is River, and Estadio Azteca, which is where America normally plays, and Cruz Azul these days. No comparison. MLS is not there yet. I didn't ask him to put this up just because he was supporting me, Glenn. I know that you think of me only in that way, but
you often take what I say into this wacky direction. But it's good. Daniel, excellent stuff.
I love it. So now Maximum actually chimes in on this. So let's go. Okay. And it goes right to your point.
Yes, we are. They were the lovebirds, and we're the antagonists.
That was a great show. That was a great show.
Well, here I would like everybody to watch the game, and during my commentary, if you'll tweet at me or post me or whatever you call it, and I pick up on it, I'll give you a shout out on the broadcast, and that's again, it's going to be 3 p.m. Eastern on Saturday in New York City against San Diego.
Does that include me?
Game 2, it includes you. Game 2 of 4 matches here at the Coachella Invitational. I have golf, bike riding, and a visit to Joshua National Tree Park at sunset coming up. But mostly work.
I'm so jealous.
I've got 14 teams, head coach and one player for each team to interview for Sirius XM, and I've done 3 so far, so I've got a long way to go.
All right. Well, it's fantastic that you're out there, that you're able to provide this insight that nobody else, and all these wonderful podcasts that support New York City FC and support the fans of New York City FC is really the best way I put it. You're the only one that's out there. So you're getting
coming out.
That's good. I'm happy to hear that.
One of the I forget which podcast. One of the somebody's coming out, and forgive me, I can't remember. But once we get together, maybe we'll do a little piece together or something. But I think they were coming out a little bit later. But I bumped into somebody somewhere and said they were coming out, and forgive me for forgetting. But we'll find out and we'll get there. All right, Roberto, let's wrap this thing up. I've got to try to stay awake for another 3 or 4 hours so I don't wake up at 3 in the morning.
It's 6:30 over there. It's 9:30 here. I just got here. 9:23.
I just got here, and the last 2 mornings I've gotten up at like 4. So I'm trying. I want to get into at least like 6 a.m. But listen, good to see you, and glad to have you back from Acapulco. So for Roberto Abramowitz, my name is Glenn Crooks. Thanks for joining us on NYCFC Views Live.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast NYCFC Views on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.